Manny never liked mirrors. He kept one in the bathroom because he had to, but even then he'd glance past it, never into it. It wasn't that he hated how he looked, he just didn't like the thoughts that came with it. Every time his eyes met his own, it felt like the reflection knew too much, like it was waiting for him to admit something he didn't want to face. He'd grown good at avoiding himself. He filled his days with work, his nights with noise, podcasts, TV, friends, anything to drown out the quiet. Still, the silence always found him, especially in the mornings. That's when the mirror caught him off guard. Sleep in his eyes, hair a mess, the kind of unguarded moment when you see yourself without pretense. Sometimes he'd pause, just for a second, and in that second he'd think, who am I even becoming? He looked fine, maybe even good, but inside, something felt misplaced, like he was walking around wearing someone else's face. That thought scared him, so he'd look away, every time.
Ashley used to love mirrors. When she was younger, she'd stand in front of them, trying on her mother's lipstick, practicing smiles, pretending to be the kind of girl who had it all figured out. But somewhere between teenage years and adulthood, the mirror stopped being fun. It became a judge, quiet, patient, cruel. Every morning, she'd study her face too closely. Was that a new line? Were her eyes tired? Was she still beautiful or just trying to be? She'd tilt her chin, fix her hair, step back, and sigh. The reflection never said anything, but she always felt like it was asking, "Is this who you really are?" She wasn't sure anymore. She had a good job, friends, a decent apartment, all the right things, but none of it felt real. She felt like a copy of herself, living out a version of life she didn't remember choosing. So she started to avoid mirrors too. She got ready in dim light. She learned to look through herself instead of at herself. It was easier that way.
One night, Manny went to a late coffee shop near his apartment, the kind of place that stayed open for people who didn't want to go home yet. He sat by the window, pretending to read, but mostly just watching reflections in the glass, blurred faces, passing lights. That's when he saw her, Ashley. She was sitting across the room, alone, staring at her cup. He didn't know her, but there was something in her expression, that tired stillness, that looked too familiar. It was the same look he saw in himself when he accidentally caught his reflection. He looked down quickly, embarrassed, though she hadn't even noticed him. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was seeing something important.
Ashley noticed him before he noticed her. He had that look, the one people get when they're pretending to be fine. She recognized it because it was the same one she wore. For a moment, she thought about saying something, maybe a small hi, maybe even a smile. But she didn't. Instead, she looked back down at her coffee, saw her reflection in the dark liquid, and felt that same old ache. It was strange, seeing another person who seemed just as unsure of themselves. She didn't feel pity. She felt seen. And that scared her more than she expected.
When Manny got home that night, he stopped in front of his bathroom mirror. For the first time in months, he didn't look away. He just stood there, breathing, eyes locked on his reflection. He thought about the girl in the cafe, how her expression mirrored his own sadness. And something clicked. Maybe we're all just reflections of each other, he thought. Maybe avoiding yourself is just another way of avoiding the truth, that you're human, imperfect, and still figuring it out. He let out a small laugh. It sounded unfamiliar, but good. He looked at himself again, really looked, and whispered, "It's okay. I see you." For once, the reflection didn't feel like an enemy.
The next morning, Ashley stood in front of her mirror. No filters, no makeup, no poses, just her. Her hair was messy, her skin a little tired, but her eyes, they looked softer somehow, calmer. She thought about the guy from the cafe, how he seemed lost but present, broken but trying. And it reminded her that she wasn't the only one still piecing herself together. She smiled, not the practiced kind, but a small, honest one. And for the first time in a long time, her reflection smiled back.
They never spoke. They didn't need to. But sometimes when Manny passed that cafe, he'd glance at the window's reflection and see his own face, steady and real.
And sometimes Ashley would catch her reflection in a storefront glass and smile instead of looking away. Two people, still learning, still growing, each finding the courage to face the mirror they once avoided.